Welcome back to the Hazmat Chat podcast. This is part 3 of a 3-part series discussing STAR's Hazmat Consulting. This episode is entitled How We Do It. So in the first episode, we talked about why we do it. Then we talked about what we do. Today, we're going to discuss how we do those things. So how does STARS do what it does? What makes us different than our competitors? Why choose us over them? So as a bit of background, I mentioned in a previous episode, I'm going to make this pretty short. My background, I started in hazardous materials response, in fire service, hazmat response. Then I was a government regulator, so basically the enforcer of all the rules. Then I was a trainer teaching the rules. Then I was a technical expert for the North American hazardous materials regulation. So I was actually implementing all the things that I had been teaching other people all those years. And now I'm a consultant. So as a result of this varied background, I've experienced firsthand the entire stage of a crisis, from root cause all the way to resolution. That means I've experienced dozens of accidents and incidents, spills and leaks from multiple purviews as a shipper, as an emergency responder, and as a regulator. I've also worked with hundreds of companies in many different industries, in the foods, oil and gas, paints and coatings, paper and pulp, specialty chemicals, logistics, and more. Those clients, those customers I've worked with, they have shipped by all modes of transportation to and from dozens of different countries, both domestic transportation in the US, domestic transportation in Canada. The reason I mention all this is because I have an abundance of unique experience and expertise. My staff does too. Because we customize all of the services for our clients, we can streamline those services, like training, for example. So most of the hazmat trainers out there right now, in the US particularly, have a DOT hazmat training class is 2 or 3 days. And we can get that down to 1 day. And on top of that, we can include hands-on training. Are you getting less from us? Absolutely not. Are you going to be zipped right through it so nobody understands anything? Of course not. What we do is we customize those training classes to your modes of transportation, your products, the way you guys are doing things, so that you can focus the class, focus their attention on the things they need to know every day. And on top of that, adults learn best by putting their hands on things, by touching, feeling, experiencing, practicing. So they don't learn best by using computer-based training. I mean, that's boring, right? It holds no one's attention. I mean, no one has ever taken a computer-based training class and said, man, that was awesome. No one's ever done that. There's a reason for that. Same thing with public workshops. Now, they have their place. If what you're looking to do is check the box, yes, I got the training. But if what you're trying to do is get a more educated workforce that can provide the best possible quality to your company, public workshops, not where you're going to get it. That's like drinking from a fire hose when really all you need is what you defined in a thimble. So you have to go through all this stuff and ask them to weed out what's important. It's almost impossible. So for example, if all your employees do is load flammable liquids into rail cars, they don't need to know about limited quantities or accepted quantities, how to apply marks and labels, or how to classify corrosive material and assign it a proper shipping name. Yes, those things have value, but not for those employees. There's other employees that those things would apply to. So we can take all of those things and eliminate them. They're not relevant for your employees. What they do need to know, however, is how to properly inspect a rail car. They need to understand tank car construction, properly identifying the parts and how they function. Which rail car items are shipper responsibility, meaning the manufacturers or those offering those cars into transportation, and which are the railroad's responsibility? And what exactly is the on-site railroad contractors that most companies have actually doing and not doing? And why do they care? You would be surprised at how many chemical companies, manufacturers, distributors have rail car contractors on site, but the employees have no idea what they're doing. They think the rail car is completely inspected and they don't have to do any of that. And that's just simply not true. Most of those railroad contractors are only performing ground level mechanical inspections. Now they may look up, and if they see something, obviously wrong on top of the rail car, they'll call it to the company's attention. Or if they see a bottom outlet valve hanging open, they'll call it to the company's attention. But their focus is on wheels, brakes, handholds, sill steps, ladders, all of the mechanical items that railroads are responsible for. That's not what shippers are responsible for. Shippers are responsible for things that will keep the material inside the package and communicate the hazard. And the railroad contractors are not looking at any of that. So those are the kinds of things that we need to train your employees on to make sure that they understand not only what their job is, but then how to do it. So if you have those same railcar loaders, how do they identify a defective condition? If they identify it, can that car be shipped? Can it, or does it have to be taken out of service? Can a mobile repair unit come in to fix it? What are the options? What are the defects that mean this car is stopped dead right here? It can't go any further. We can't load it. And more importantly, can it be safely offloaded? I get that question all the time. We have this damaged car. Can it be safely offloaded? Well, you have to know when to evaluate that, how to evaluate that, and how to make that assessment. And that's part of their job. That's part of understanding the role that shippers, meaning offers of rail cars, perform. How to properly close packages for transportation, and how to protect themselves while performing the loading and unloading functions. These are all things that you're not going to get in a public workshop, and you're really not going to get thoroughly with a computer-based training class. And it's not just about rail cars. I talk about rail cars mostly because that's my passion. That's my love. But we do this kind of thing for all modes of transportation. If you're going to ship packages by air, we're going to make sure you thoroughly understand how to select the right packaging, what the codes on the packaging mean, how to prepare it for transportation, how to follow the written instructions, the fact that you have to even maintain those instructions, which most people don't know. The point is, we can do that. We can focus the training to the things your people need to know and eliminate the things they don't need to know. When we perform audits, for example, we don't use a checklist. Most people say, oh, can you give us your audit checklist ahead of time? We don't use them. I hate checklists because I despise anything that's just a paperwork exercise. When I go do an audit, I know what I need to look at. Yes, we have a basic plan when we walk in the door. I know that I'm going to need to look at, half a dozen things without question. But then I want to see where the inspection takes me, because every inspection that we have ever done has its own personality. We want to approach every audit that we do with practical, real-life benefits in mind. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can possible to save lives and prevent injuries, number one, right? But we also want to look at how can we reduce costs? How can we improve compliance in a way that best works for your company? And obviously avoid environmental contamination. Those are the goals when we walk through the door. But where that takes us and what that looks like for your company will be very different. It might even be different between sites. I might go to one site and I discover that I need to look at certain things. And then when I go to another of your facilities, I may realize the focus is entirely something different. So I don't walk in there with a checklist. I have to see this, I have to see this, I have to see this. Because me putting a check mark on a piece of paper means nothing to you. What matters to you is what value I can bring that will improve your operation, improve efficiency, increase safety, and improve regulatory compliance. How do I help you do what you do better, faster, safer, and cheaper? And I can't do that with a checklist. The conditions we find when we get to your company always lead us down the critical pathway. Let me give you some examples. So one of the audits that we've done, we discovered that one of our clients was shipping a hazardous material as a non-hazardous material. There was an employee in their environmental health and safety department that had determined they could use an exception which would allow them to ship this hazmat as non-hazardous. They were mistaken. It didn't actually apply to them. They didn't read the entire thing. They just read the one sentence they thought looked good. And worse, they had been doing this for years. The carrier they had chosen to move this product wasn't even authorized to ship hazardous materials, so they shouldn't have been moving the product at all. However, to fix all of this would have cost my client millions of dollars and several broken contracts, which would have resulted in penalties. So in this case, we helped them reformulate the product so that it was truly no longer hazardous. They could truly legally ship it as a non-hazardous material. And it also didn't change the critical end use for the customer. They could still use it exactly as they always had and not change their process on that end at all. It was a huge savings for our client, and it really gave them a lot of comfort and reduced their stress. Another example, we had a discovery that laboratory staff was mishandling and not properly preparing hazmat for air transport. Now, this wasn't even on our radar when we walked in the door. This is a large chemical manufacturer. Most all of their transportation is done by rail, truck, or pipeline. But the laboratory staff was preparing samples for their customers to do assays, quality control checks, things like that. So they were pulling samples for their clients and then shipping them by air so that they could be tested in the client's laboratories. So when we walked in the door, this piece was such a small bit of their business that no one really even thought about it. But when we looked at what was actually going on, the liability potential was huge. So we ended up focusing a lot more on that than we ever thought we would. We attempted retraining. We wrote new procedures. We revised some existing procedures, and we provided supervision. Nothing worked. Nothing kept these issues from recurring. Every time we went back and repeated the audit, we were finding the same stuff. So an innovative solution we came to, we eliminated the shipping responsibilities for the laboratory staff entirely and ended up employing a third-party contractor, which we just audited and who passed with flying colors. They are doing a great job, solved all the problems for our clients, and reduced their liability and risk. That wasn't even on our radar when we started that. In another example, we had one client who had a complete failure to have or manage a hazardous waste program. They said, well, we don't have any hazardous waste. Then we found out that they do, like nearly every other chemical shipper that ever existed. They have off-spec products sometimes that they can't get rid of. They have expired products, spilled product, leaked product, things that everyone experiences, but they had no way to manage that program. They weren't controlling it. They weren't keeping an eye on it. They weren't doing any of those things to track it that they are legally required to do. So we had to develop a whole new waste program for them, develop procedures, all of it. Another client that we have had a rail contractor who we actually watched drop the blue caution signs that say stop, tank car connected. They dropped the derails and they pulled in cars into the loading area behind all the protective measures, very close to cars that were actively loading, with 4 employees in the immediate area and 4 more employees very close by. To say this is a major safety violation would be an understatement. This is about as dangerous as it gets. The railroad in question, the railroad contractor, violated every safety rule out there. And the fact that none of the employees that watched this happen as they were standing there loading these rail cars did anything about it, none of them raised a stink. Clearly, this was something they were used to happening. They saw nothing wrong with this. So we completely changed our entire plan of auditing this property. And for that entire day, our entire focus was solving, fixing, and getting to the root cause of this problem, because it was an immediate safety concern with an extreme level of danger and a very high degree of risk. This demanded our full attention. Lately, we've also had 2 clients launching entirely new operations. One product that's never been shipped before, and another product that has been shipped, but was never, there's no authorized packaging for rail shipments. So for this client, we are helping them get authorized packaging, developing some special permits for them, developing processes and procedures. This is a whole new system that they've never done before. In fact, the industry has never done before. So we get to be on the very cutting edge of introducing these new products to, in certain cases, rail shipping, in other cases, shipping at all. We have another client who lost all of their in-house expertise in recent years through attrition, and another client who never had any. And in both companies, we're getting to help develop subject matter experts for them to help them develop that in-house expertise. So 2 of our clients have also recently lost their subject matter expertise that they had in-house through attrition, things like retirements and job changes. So we've also been helping those clients develop new subject matter expertise within their companies. In one case, they needed to learn about rail transportation. And in another case, they came from a quality job and didn't really know HSE, but now they're in charge of HSE, meaning health, safety, and environmental. So we're helping them learn the piece of their job that they're not familiar with. to make sure that they can do it and do it well. So not only are we going to develop the subject matter expertise for these two companies within their own teams, but we will also continue to support them long-term to continue to provide the high degree of expertise that they have learned to expect from us. The bottom line is that we will do whatever best meets our clients' needs, as it relates to manufacturing, transportation, storage, handling, or disposal of hazardous materials. And if we can't do it, we inevitably know someone who can. We have a pretty big network in this industry. And nearly every client that STARS has ever worked with, we still work with. Because our clients know that they can get the answers they need, they can trust those answers, and they'll come from responsible professionals who have their best interests at heart and who have come to know their business. If any of the things that I've talked about today resonate with you, if there's anything that STARS can help you with, please don't hesitate to call or email us. We would love to hear from you. And viewers, if there's any topics that you would like to learn more about or that you want STARS to talk about, let us know that too. You can reach us at info@starshazmat.com, and that's STARS with an S. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.